Okay, so hi everybody. We're now live. Thank you all for gracing me with your presence, or I would say gracing us as Speak Up Africa with your presence. My name is Diana, and I'll be your host for today. Um, this space, or what I work for, who I present, is Speak Up Africa, who is an online digital platform that seeks to inform, empower, and engage the youth in societal conversations that can help elevate different units or different issues when it comes to the society. And for today, we are speaking about the marriage bill. But before we proceed into what we're going to be doing today, I would love for you guys to introduce yourself. I would want to start with uh, Rosa, and then we can proceed to Hassan, and then uh, save the best for last, if that's okay with you. Yes,
Okay,
Rosa,
hi
introduce.
everybody. I trust that you can hear me. My name is Rosa Sau. I am a marriage and family therapist, licensed and practicing here in Kenya, but also virtually because of the benefit of the digital platform. I run my practice here in Kenya, Nairobi, and I am also a child therapist and a trainer and facilitator. So that's about the basic introduction as pertains this forum. But of course, there are very many other introductions I could do with different forums, unless there's any other thing that you'd love to know about me.
Thank you for that. That's perfect. Yes, Hassan, let's hear about you now. Please introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you very much for this invitation. I'm Hassan Kimela from Tanzania, and I'm teaching law at the Department of Private Law, Kenzumba University in Tanzania. And I'm so much excited to be here to join in this forum that we partake, where we will be reflecting on the law relating to divorce in East Africa. And I'm just interested to hear much on the side of marriage. Marriage counseling, because this is among the issues that pose a great challenge and leading to, I mean, a big number of divorce in East Africa. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Hassan. And we'll have the last, who is Marvin, give us his profile and what he stands for and who he is. Yes, Marvin.
Hello, guys. I'm Marvin Kimani. I'm a law graduate. I'm a lawyer. I'm a legal consultant. I work with Cadmo Legal, and I deal with family law matters. Uh, Basically, anything to do with divorce, uh, parental plans, uh, family law matters in general.
Okay. Thank you so much, Marvin. Okay, so we're just going to just dive deep into the conversation. So we're trying to understand the new marriage bill in Kenya, and then we do a comparative analysis of what is happening in the other regions in East Africa, particularly Tanzania. So, for today, before we start discussing the marriage bill itself and what it entails, we first need to figure out the whole idea of marriage and what it stands for. And this is why we really need you here, Rosa, because we know marriage from like a legal standpoint. I I think most of us in here are single and married, so we don't necessarily have the views of what marriage entails apart from whatever we know from the outside world. So Rosa, don't you mind if you we would love for you to like give us like an insight of the cultural significance of marriage in general. Why is marriage so important to everyone? Why is it like almost a societal norm that people get married? What is the whole point of marriage?
Mm, Thank you, Diana. I think when we look at marriage from the perspective of culture, we want to appreciate that we are Africans, and Africans have deeply embedded cultural values in terms of how we value our culture right from the olden days, if I may put it that way. So when you look at the significance, we are talking about the aspect of perpetuity or continuity, that marriage was seen as a social structure to establish families, and families was seen as a way to continue generations and to continue a nation. When you think of nations, when you think of rulership, that is how our communities were organized in terms of continuity, that there were even certain families that were rulers, and these families were coming from a marriage perspective. So we look at family as one, a structure, a social structure to create and also to continue the family line. You also look at marriage as a means of passing morality, because it was seen that marriage was carried a certain moral value, that if one is married, there is a standard that they acquire in the community or the society that they live in. There is a particular respect and dignity that they are given. So we would see that even within the marriage setup, marriage was being given the value of teaching certain morals, like purity, like respect, like communication, like the dignity of men and women. You're also looking at marriage as a means of unity, a unifying factor, whether it was for political alliances, like when a king would marry a daughter of a king from another region or another community, and things like that, or even family alliances that you'd see, especially in the olden times or in the back years, where marriage was being used to bring certain families together depending on the social class. And this is where you'd hear things like, you cannot marry from this particular family because it's going to disgrace our family or something like that. So marriage was seen as a very heavy, was carried heavily. And of course, we've seen that change with time, but we saw that this was not just a personal choosing, that I get to choose somebody because I love them, but it was beyond love. Marriage was not for love, it was for many other things, and probably love would come in later. It was also seen as a mode of social obligation to help members improve their own esteem. And that's why you see that sometimes people would settle to get married to anybody, without sometimes maybe taking more time to think about it, because of the pressure of how old are you? Why are you not having any children? You need to find somebody and settle down. So you see then the settling down. What that is giving us is the notion of you're not settled until you're married. So when we call even marriage settling down, what is the social construct that we are creating in the minds of people is that you are a vagabond. You are moving up and down unless you're married. So we are seeing that this is the background from where we are coming from. Also, just in other communities in the world, but particularly in our African setup, marriages for all these other things. And when we look at also the religious aspect, where we are deeply religious community in terms of Africans, whether it's the traditional spirituality or Christian or Islam or Hindu, but the depth of how we entrench our religious um, faiths, and all of these religious faiths highly esteem marriage also as a means of honoring its gods, whether it's the Christian faith, whether it's the Islam or African religion. We are also seeing it as a means of honoring God and ascending to a higher class in relationship with the God when you are married and when you're able to honor and stay in the marriage.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rosa, for that. So basically, marriage carries a lot of significance when it comes to the African society specifically, because it's more of uniting before it came to love. And as you've mentioned, it has progressed and evolved over the years. So my second question would be the fact that prior you look or you seem as you're a vagabond, and now you're trying to settle down, as you've mentioned it. So now through the years there's been challenges when it comes to marriages, and this is a question I want to pose to all of you speakers, because Rosa, you are an expert in this. I would love for you to go last, but then I would want to understand what are some of the common challenges as married couples we have been able to witness in married couples in across Eastern Africa. And I would love to start with you, Marvin, then we can proceed to Kimela, and then we can get the professional idea or insights from Rosa.
Pardon?
Sorry, I just wanted you to give us an overview of the challenges that married couples face as a legal consultant, as someone who's experienced or heard of such instances of people coming to you and like, okay, my marriage has broken down and I want out of this. So what have been some of the challenges that you've had or you've experienced or you've seen that married couples are experiencing as of now?
A lot of married people face a lot of challenges, um, especially when they want to separate or divorce. Uh, they usually have a difficult time, or they are they when dividing their assets. Uh, most of the time they cannot agree on what to do, the next step to take, who will take care of the kids. Uh, Probably in Kenya we really don't have the alimony aspect as much, but child support is one of the key issues that I've seen in courts. Divorcing couples often have a difficult time when uh, maybe the husband is supposed to pay upkeep the child support, but is not doing that. That is one of the key challenges. Another challenge is really the process. The process takes quite some time. You cannot just wake up today and say that legally, you cannot wake up today and say that you're getting divorced. You have to go through the court process and it takes time. It's quite expensive. That is, but those are the main challenges. But the main challenge, the biggest challenge that I've seen is separation. Most of the time when these people come to court, they they have disagreed, and some of them don't even want to see each other face to face. They talk to their lawyers. So just agreeing, simple agreements can be a challenge.
Okay, thank you for that. Hassan, can we please get your insights?
Okay, thank you. I'm not far from Marvin regarding the challenges that couples experience in the process of petitioning for divorce, the division of matrimonial property, and issues to do with custody of the children acquired during the subsistence of marriage. But one of the biggest challenges that witnessed in Tanzania is the ability of the marriage conciliation boards to amicably reconcile the marriage couples when they are in dispute. Look, if you read section 101 of the Law of Marriage Act of Tanzania, it has been designed to ensure that when a dispute arises between the couples, then they should refer the matters to the Marriage Concession Board, MCB, for amicable settlement. But most of these cases or disputes do not end at the stage of reconciliation because couples are not ready to resolve their matters, and then they proceed to court for petition for divorce. And recently, one of the professors at the Faculty of Law has written a paper looking at the dispute settlement at marriage concession boards in Tanzania. One of the challenges is that these conciliators lack capacity to reconcile the couples, the spouses, and that's why uh, uh, currently we have the problem of an increasing number of divorces. Why? Because these boards have been established to ensure that marriage disputes are handled amicably, and the courts of law should be approached in very sparing circumstances, and divorce should not be granted uh, on friends grounds, but to the contrary, these boards are not doing what the law actually contemplates. One of the challenges that they lack skills and capacity to reconcile these marriage spouses. But the other challenge is when it comes to division of matrimonial property. Uh, you see, with the current developments that's taking place globally, you can see our law is now uh, uh, very unfriendly when it comes to definition of matrimonial property. And the pertinent issue that uh, uh, is on the debate of the academicians nowadays is whether shares, you see, you have the husband owning shares in a particular company, and therefore the marriage dissolves. The question is, should the shares of the husband in a particular company be treated as matrimonial asset? So these are the issues which actually pose as a challenge in a divorce regime in Tanzania. And the other one is issues to do with custody of children. Our law actually allows a wife to have a custody of a child who is under the age of 7 years. When he reaches 7 years old, the child can give his or her views whether or not he or she wants to live with the father or the mother. That's what we call the best interest of the child as one of the factors that the court should take into account when determining who should be a custodian of the child. Other issues are procedural aspects. Remember, the law of marriage in Tanzania requires a person who wants to petition for divorce to refer the dispute to MCB before the same is taken to court for litigation. And if the MCB fails to reconcile the parties, it is required to issue a certificate, actually in the prescribed form number 3, certifying that the board has sat down and it has failed to reconcile these parties. Then the court should proceed. Now, instead of issuing a proper certificate, you see most of the boards issue a letter. And when the petition is filed with this purported certificate, the petition is actually struck out for not complying with the requirement of the law. So you find the uh, divorce law in Tanzania um, full of litigation costs, time consuming. You can see. So that these are among of the challenges that Tanzania.
It seems like we lost. Sorry, Kimela, we had lost you there for a minute. You can just finish up.
Okay, so actually those are the challenges that are currently facing family law in Tanzania. Issues to do with procedures, division of matrimonial property, issues to do with custody of the children present a huge challenge in our law.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Now, my question to you, Rosa, as a marriage counselor or a marriage therapist, a professional who deals with issues when it comes to marriage, what are some of the challenges that you see? Because I know before people decide, or I am assuming that before people decide that they want to end their marriages, they proceed to see counselors, they proceed to see marriage therapists to see if they can fix it, to see if they can basically just solve it. So what are some of the challenges you see that most married couples come to you with before they even get to a point where they want to see legal counselors like someone like Marvin or someone like Hassan? Before they get there, before they get to the court and the government, what are some of the challenges they face when they come to you and tell you, okay, this is where we are and this is what we want to do? Please give us your views on that.
Thank you, Diana. There was a study done by a psychologist called Dr. Gottman, and he was saying that when couples are in disagreement, when somebody is sick, it may take a period of 1 week to, I think 1 week, I could be getting the numbers wrong, but the comparison is when somebody is physically unwell, it takes them 1 week to make the decision to go to hospital. hospital, but it may take them 9 months to a year to actually decide, can we speak to a counselor? So sometimes it is not even a given that people would actually start with the counselor before the lawyer. Sometimes they go to the lawyer, and then maybe it's the lawyer who would recommend, would you even like to speak to someone to make this process easier, or when the court sends them for mediation. But as regards to your question on some of the challenges, I think one of the things that couples face, not just during divorce but even during the marriage, is communication. We say that communication is the lifeline of a relationship, just like breath is to a human being. That communication is very important, and communication is not just saying I want milk. It's not just passing the message, but how is the message passed? How do the people communicate? What are the emotions involved in the communication? What is underlying the spoken? There is the verbal and there is the non-verbal. What am I saying behind the message? What am I not saying with what I am saying? And we see that again, communication is influenced by very many other factors. How I was brought up, how my partner was brought up, what are the external factors that are influencing how I communicate to this partner. And so we begin to see that one of the biggest challenges, even as couples come for therapy, is that sometimes they're basically not able to communicate. And you may ask yourself, then how did they actually become husband and wife? It could be that at that particular point, their communication was highly influenced by their attachment styles. Now, when we talk also about attachment styles, that brings in the other challenge with couples. And I think the biggest challenge we would say among all of these things is self-awareness. Because as I'm saying all of this is, does the individual know that they have a challenge with communication? Can they acknowledge that this is a challenge and they may need help? You also look at with self-awareness now, like I was saying, the other challenge is attachment styles. Do you know your attachment style as a potential partner or a partner to somebody? What influences your love? When you say I love somebody, from what grounding? Because sometimes we love people, we love them, and how we are brought up to express love by clinging to them. That because we are afraid of feeling abandoned, we are constantly checking their phones, we are constantly, wanting to know where they are, while the other party may be feeling smothered or suffocated by that show of love. So if I have a partner and I'm constantly suspicious because how I was brought up, my needs were not attended to, and in this case, then I grew up with something we call an anxious attachment style. I am constantly anxious. I feel that I may be abandoned. I'm afraid of being left. So I will do everything and anything to keep this relationship going. While the other person maybe is an avoidant attachment styler who doesn't like all of this lovey-dovey or the feeling of let's come together. Intimacy is threatening to them. They are more okay with a casual kind of affair, and the anxious is let's go deeper, I want more. So you see these people, lack of self-awareness is going to cause one person to feel that this person is not attending to my needs, and the other one will feel that this person is too nagging. So when they take it to court, what grounding will they say? Irreconcilable differences. But it started from a lack of awareness about their personal attachment styles, about their communication styles. How do you communicate when you're angry? How are you able to manage your emotions? Are you aware of your upbringing and how it affects? Are there any childhood traumas that affect how you're relating to your partner, how you're treating your partner? When you even look at things like boundaries, that's also a major challenge with couples in marriages. How do you identify your own boundaries? Where do you start and where does the other person start? Or is it that in many marriages, people believe that when we get married, we become one? Because probably like in the Christian faith, that's what they are told. They have become one. So at what point do I let my partner go to be out with the boys? At what point does my partner let me go to my chamas and enjoy the women without feeling that when you're married, you're mine and you belong to me? And when you think of things like phones, because when these things come to court, you will realize that what they say in court and what they may say in a therapy room are very different things. In the court, it may be what is prescribed under the constitution as grounds for divorce. But when they come to the therapy room, you will realize it's things like boundaries, that one person feels that their boundaries are not respected, the other person feels that their partner is smothering them or suffocating them. And so this things that are coming from an emotional aspect, when they are being brought to court, we find that the emotions then hamper the process. So if individuals are able then to be at a place of self-awareness to see that these challenges are things that can be solved with a lot of awareness and skill training, what I do believe is that many marriages will not get to the court process, because the awareness also helps you to know, how do I work with somebody who is like A, B, C, D? How do I deal with you if you're an anxious attachment styler? How do I communicate to you? So the basic challenges I would say is communication, boundaries, attachment or emotional connection, and lack of awareness.
Thank you for that, Rosa. So, from your breakdown of this entire issue, is that marriage starts breaking down from like internal issues to external issues. It could be all over the place. It could be something that could stem from your home, or also be affected by issues like your cultural or background. Yeah, your home background, your relation to other people, your siblings, your family, and your upbringing, basically. So, diving into this discussion today, we are trying to figure out the new marriage bill in Kenya. So there was the act which was passed in 2014, and the act in 2014 was mostly based on fault-based approach, where marriage was considered to have broken down when they found maybe faults in neglect, abuse, or infidelity. So now with this new amendment, where it's trying to instill a new rule or a new order to it, is that they're trying to add the fact that people could separate or dissolve their marriages when it comes down to mutual consent. And now this is where I come back to you as our guest. I would just love to understand, when it comes to this issue of mutual consent, what does it tell us about the different like societal attitudes? Do you think like we're moving from an era where we were looking for more fault in like, okay, we're leaving each other now, or our marriage didn't work out because we didn't find the solution to it, and now we're changing into a point where we're like, okay, we both agreed this is not working and we're going to walk away? What do you think this says about our societal attitude? What do you think it says about the society itself and where we're heading when it comes to matters of marriage? And I would love to start with Marvin, please, if you don't mind. Give us a legal perspective of it. Please unmute, Marvin.
So I think that it is a good idea because it saves a lot of time, and it also shows that we are willing to work on our differences in a more approachable way. So, in my opinion, mutual separation, divorce by mutual separation is good because we do not have to, unlike at fault divorce, we do not have to go through the process of blaming the other person, saying maybe they committed adultery or such. And it is cheaper, it is faster compared to going through proving the at fault divorce.
Okay, so Marvin, you basically are saying you're agreeing that the fact that we are moving from a fault-based approach to now a mutual consent approach, we are shifting the blame. We're not going to court say this person did this to me. I blame so and so they cheated on me. I blame so and so they neglected me. But then, don't you think like we're making it? And this is now a question to Kimela. You've read the bill. You see how as Kenya we're trying to progress and we're trying to change. Don't you think if like, and considering the African heritage, where almost like ending a marriage is taboo, like it's not allowed, yeah? It's not allowed. Like, why are you guys breaking down? Don't you think, like, if we shift from this paradigm of where now we're not living in a fault based way of trying to dissolve a marriage into more of like we've settled down, we've come to mutual consent, don't you think that this is going to make it easier for marriages to like break down and also like kind of weaken the whole institution of marriage and what it stands for? Hassan, please unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you. I think now Kenya is moving away from fault-based approach to uh, dissolution of marriage based on mutual consent between spouses. I think reading the law as it stands today and reading the bill, one can easily see that these new amendments do not overhaul the fault-based approach. The amendment is just an addition. Introduction of dissolution of marriage by mutual consent between spouses is just an um, additional layer to the existing fault-based regime. Because if you read that petition, it does not repeal or overhaul the provisions relating to fault-based grounds for divorce. So my point of view is that it might be that couples are now going to uh, handle their marriage issues more effectively, amicably, and at lower cost. But I'm worried if this amendment is going to be implemented effectively. And the reason is most of the petitions that are going to court are contested. So my question is, can it be feasible for both parties to sit down and amicably consent to end their marriage? If most of the petitions that are going to court are contested by the other spouse, is it going to be feasible for them to terminate their relationships just by agreeing mutually? That is the question which begs actually the research, and it's up to time to see if it's going to be possible. But another, when you look at marriage life in African culture, marriage as social value, I see this reform is going to whittle down the social value of marriages and institutions. If you read the definition of marriage, you can see that it is an institution which is intended to last for lifetime of the partners. It is not intended to last within a particular period of time. You see, it is there to last eternally. And that is the essence of having marriage as an institution, because it has a lot of significance when it comes to issues of children, the society value, and the rest. But if these amendments come into operation, you can see that it is going to drain the social value of marriage as an institution within the African cultural life.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And I think you made a very interesting point mentioning the fact that if people can go ahead and decide that they're going to end their marriage from a mutual consent, then why can't they fix it? I think this is what the court is trying to eliminate, the back and forth. I am when I look at it. But then I would also want to understand, like from a marriage therapist point of view, and this is for you, Rosa, right now. When it comes to now Kimela mentioned that we're not necessarily moving from a fault-based way of dissolving marriage, but we're adding an easier way out. It doesn't mean that it has been revoked. So, what do you think are like the advantages when you look at this bill compared to whatever we had prior, the Act in 2014? What do you think would be some of the advantages that would come in with the passing of this bill? And what are some of the disadvantages of passing this bill?
Thank you, Diana. One of the, let me start with the disadvantage, based on even just picking up from the last point that the last speaker has highlighted, the aspect of finding an easier way out. And I want to refer to the generation that we are living in, the aspect of getting an instant fix to everything, the microwave generation kind of thing. So is this also a microwave solution to marriage, that I don't like it, I want to get out of it, I'm not willing to work on it, and there is a quick fix. I don't even have to go through a long court process. It's You know how they advertise, like at the touch of a button and you get it. So probably we may move to a place where there'll be an app and you'll just have to both sign and the marriage is dissolved or something like that. But I see that as removing the sense of responsibility. I do acknowledge that there are viable and very valid reasons for marriage to dissolve. And we are not saying that people have to stay in marriages by force. That we do really acknowledge that there are times that separation and divorce is the best thing for both parties and all parties involved, because there are children sometimes that are involved in a marriage. But we're also asking ourselves the question that, are we throwing the baby with the bathwater, where now we are providing solutions? I'm curious to know, would also the bill have introduced more suggestions on how people could actually work on the marriages? And probably that's a far-fetched thought, because it may also not just be about the courts doing that, but also as a society, is this revealing a sense of giving up, that we've seen too much and it seems like the best solutions available are towards easier dissolution because of some of the things that we have seen? Is it that our society has seen enough of the bad and stopped believing that marriage works? Is it that we have not seen enough benefit from marriages to believe that this is something worth fighting for? Remember, we want to invest in things that bring us value. And that's why people will fight for freedom, like the freedom fighters of our nation, because they realize that being independent and being able to make decisions for themselves as a nation was worth it. And it was worth it to the point of losing their life. So is it that the marriage institution has received such a bad rap, probably from the upbringing, the houses that we grew up in, and how we saw our parents with kuvumilia, or what we call perseverance. And we have seen that this perseverance brought more harm than good. And there weren't structures that were to work on the marriage in a healthy way, but it degenerated into an unhealthier way. And so marriage has received a bad rap over the years, which means that a lesser percentage over the years is believing in the sanctity, in the benefit, and in the joy of marriage. And that's why now what is easier is to provide quicker ways of dissolution. So that would be for me a concern, just in terms of, because our behavior tells us what our thought process is like. So the behavior is the bill, the amendment. But what has informed, what thought process as a society has informed us to exhibit this behavior? Where are we coming from? What is our subconscious as regarding marriage as a society? Because before things come to the conscious, they have been formed and they are coming from a subconscious place. What is our subconscious? What is this bill telling us about our general consensus subconsciously about marriage? But probably some of the advantages that we can probably think of is less emotional stress. For me as a marriage therapist, that would be a big thing, because we see that when couples are going through divorce, one of the things that we see is a lot of emotional damage that happens, because the structure of it is a win-lose adversarial approach, which means that people are fighting. When people are fighting, adrenaline is involved, anger is involved, pain is involved, loss is involved, a lot of grief is involved. Now, this is an adult fight. But when there are children involved, you can imagine that these children, they were not there when the people were agreeing to come together and have fun. They were not consulted when people are agreeing to go the divorce way, but they're the ones that will bear much of the pain, because this is something that has just found them and it has caught them unawares. So if people then are able to take off the emotional heat and weight of the process by mutual consent, we are probably having the hope that children may become less damaged, because even the question of child custody, visitation, and maintenance will not be there. So we are seeing that the children may be cushioned emotionally, but also even the parents will be cushioned, because one of the things that will be mandated of them is a parental plan, a parental agreement, and they don't have to do a lot of fighting. So I think that's one of the advantages: less emotional stress, less conflict, and even the ease. If the process is shorter, it means that couples will move on to start co-parenting sooner. Imagine if a process takes 4 years for you to get the final decree. So during these 4 years, children are experiencing a gap in maintenance, in emotional baggage, because if the parents are overwhelmed and dealing with their own issues in court, who has time to listen to a child's emotions, especially if they are not self-aware about themselves? So if this ease is created, it means that parents will then be able to focus on more important matters as regards to the continuity of the family, because the family now will have moved from what it was to maybe a blended family or maybe a co-parenting family. But then parents will be able to move towards that quicker, in a healthier manner, and with less emotional conflict, which we see affects children actually more than adults, and also leads to more damage in terms of you'll get probably more sick days because you're going through that, and grieving is difficult and you're getting sicker. People will be more productive at work because divorce takes an emotional toll on people. So productivity is normally affected when people are going through such things. Less occupational accidents, especially for people whose jobs is needs a lot of concentration. Imagine a nurse who's going through divorce, or a doctor or a surgeon, and they're constantly thinking about the amount of stress this process is giving them, and they're supposed to be treating somebody. So we're seeing that the effects of that will be felt on a larger scale, probably more than we had thought about, when you think of the implications of what the process does in the here and now when we do not have this particular option. I don't know if that helps with insight regard to the advantages and disadvantages. Diana?
Yes, that actually makes a lot of sense. I think that
Mm.
my key takeaway from the conversation and from the breakdown that you gave us is that if this new clause is going to bring in an easy way to dissolve these marriages, then it's going to be way easier for the children to be in safer homes and more peaceful compared to like when they're in fights and their parents are arguing and they're not being taken care of. So that was my key takeaway. So I definitely want to pose this question to Marvin, because from Marvin's explanations, it sounded like he was all for the new amendment, the clause that is being added into the bill, into the already proposed act that was there. So Marvin, my question to you, since you were saying you agree with the fact that okay, this this new clause that is being added could help us move away from a lot of spending a lot of money, wasting a lot of time, being in toxic situations where you don't feel like there's any progress. Now, my question to you is, do you think that this clause that is being added or this amendment, do you see any challenges or limitations to it?
Yeah, definitely there are challenges. One of the challenges is during divorce, you'll have to agree on certain aspects. One of them is division of debts. As you know, married people are considered legally as one people, one unit. So if the couple have debts and they want to divorce, that is one of the things that they have to agree who will take care of the debts. And another thing is probably maybe if one of the spouses was not working, he or she was depending on the other spouse for financial security, um, for financial dependence. So that means that the one of the party will not have financial security after that. Another thing is the changing circumstances. When people divorce, you have to take care of certain things like upkeep. The court will determine how much you will be providing for upkeep, maybe school fees, clothes, home, other things that you have to provide for your children. One of the things is that when these circumstances change, maybe you get laid off from work, it will be difficult for you to go back and amend the agreement that you had during the divorce. Um, Another thing that I can think of is unequal power dynamics. One of the things, one of the person may have more power, maybe it may have more control in the relationship, making it difficult for the other spouse to negotiate to have a better deal or an equal deal during divorce. Communication issues is another thing. Most of the people who opt to divorce, um, they look at it as the last result. So they may not have, they may not be seeing eye to eye. Child custody and support is another thing. Parties have to, uh, they may disagree on the payment. They may also disagree on parenting plans. Who will take care of the kids during holidays? When will the kid be visiting? Another thing, by mutual consent, it complicates your finances. And that is one of the, that is the major thing that people disagree on, because the kids will still remain to be your children. But your assets, your, uh, maybe as Hassan said, if you had shares, how will you divide it? Those are some of the things that I can think of at the moment.
Thank you so much, Marvin. And so the biggest risk that people could run from dissolving their marriage, either whether it's on mutual consent, whether it's a fault-based approach, the biggest issue would preferably or probably be the financial factor, from my understanding from your revelations. And so my question for you, Hassan, would be: do you think the divorce laws, since basically we're from Kenya, we don't know the divorce laws and how the Tanzanian court and the laws act when it comes to divorce laws. So do you think the divorce laws in Tanzania, they help with the protection, or how do they balance with the protection of dissolution of marriages? Because according to our courts and our laws, you're seeing they're trying to make this procedure a bit less tougher or less strenuous than what it was. How about the laws in Tanzania and the divorce laws that you guys accustom yourself to? How do those go? Yes, Hassan. Hassan, can you hear us? Okay. I do not know what is going on there, so we will proceed. So next question would be, mm, my next question would be, and this would be for both Marvin and Rosa. So now that they're trying to amend this bill, they're trying to amend this act, they're trying to put this new bill that is going to change the whole dynamics of marriage and the whole dynamics of marriage dissolution. What are the potential implications do you think they will have on like individuals? This amendment bill, what do you think it will have? The challenges, or what impact would it bring to individuals in an individual context? Do you feel like individuals would be more empowered? Do you feel like individuals would be more at the willing to take the risk of marriage, knowing very well that maybe, if this doesn't work out very well after IR of the marriage being certified, then we can walk away? What do you think it does to people, to individuals? Yes, Rosa, you may start.
I'm smiling because I'm seeing it both ways. And the question that you've asked, I'm just internally asking myself the same question. If I knew there's a way out, how does that impact on my commitment? And a running joke that my spouse once told me is, if you're in this place constantly thinking of a way out, you will have more than enough reasons to get out. So you have to make up your mind that you're here to stay, and you will find more reasons to make it work. And so when we are getting into the marriage knowing that divorce is an option and there are very many easy ways to get out, I don't know how that strengthens the commitment of the parties in the marriage. Then I think that the implication of that would then mean that we may become more prone to giving up and not working it out, and working it out from an informed perspective, from an aware perspective, that nobody is born knowing how to get married or to stay married. I think we even need to acknowledge that the marriage is something that people can need to learn. And it's said that it's one of the institutions that you get a certificate before you actually learn anything, and you learn after the certificate. And if we begin to train our society that these are things that the same way you sit through from grade 1 to university, taking almost 12 years to learn towards a career, if we can begin investing in our young generation and start teaching them about the sanctity of family, the benefits of family and marriage, and starting to train and ground our generation in such things, that probably then, even though we may have such clauses in our acts of the marital act, that our people have an internal working system that helps them to make decisions even before they are given an act or a bill that tells them, hey, here's the card, you can get out. So the implication then would be that the internal working model, the subconscious construct that we are passing on to the next generation, is that we are providing more options. That what then was a sacred entity becomes very optional and very soluble, very dispensable. It is not necessary. And as the generations continue, the baton we are passing is that at a particular generation, marriage may be non-existent. So that's the implication, one of the implications that we are going to run into. That right now, these are questions. That what does it mean? Does it mean that people have minimized or cheapened the sanctity of marriage? But as we continue to pass it over and over again to generations, a generation will come that will see absolutely no need. It will not even be a question. This will become like the ancestral tales. They'll be like, oh, there used to be some ancestors who used to speak about marriage. What was that even? So when we start to think about such options that we are providing in the society, we want to ask what was passed down, because when we water down what was passed down, us who were taught about the sanctity of marriage, there is still a moral conscience inside of us that, yeah, we can manage to make this optional, but at least for me as an individual, because of what I've learned. But as I pass it down in a watered manner and it goes on and on, are we running the risk that we will have a generation in the future that will absolutely have no regard for family? And then we want to ask ourselves, then what will be the real implication of that? So from an individual perspective, yes, it may make it easy, it may make it very dispensable, it may give you options as an individual, it may make you more aware, equal, the justice movement. But what are we passing on to our next generation? And is it about time we start asking ourselves, what kind of a generation of a legacy, as a generation now, what kind of a legacy do we want to leave for the future? So yes, there are potential benefits, but we also want to look at what's the subconscious message that we are creating for ourselves and that we are sending to the future generations, and what will that mean, even for the individuals that will come in the future? Because right now we're talking about our own individual implications, but what will be the individual implications of what we are proposing now? Because remember, we say law is passed down generations. The same thing about mindset and behavior and thought processes and values. So what value system are we creating in the now, and what will the implication be in the future? Over to you,
Thank you
Diana.
so much, Rosa. So basically, from Rosa's explanation, Rosa is saying, apart from like looking at it from an individual context, when you do look at it deeper and with the generations to come in the future, it's like we are basically watering down the entire idea of marriage through this bill. Ni kama tunatikisa msingi, kama Watanzania wangesema kimela, ni kama msingi wa ndoa ni kama hauko tena. Sasa mimi ningependa tu kukuuliza wewe kama Mtanzania, unadhani kama Watanzania ikifika katika hizi kwa koti yenu na mitandao yenu na venye mnakubaliana na watu wakubaliane kuachana kwa ndoa, unadhani kama Watanzania na koti zenu, mnaona ni kama mnakubali ni rahisi kwa watu kuondoka kwa ndoa, ama ni ngumu, ama Yaani nyinyi kulingana na sisi, tofauti yenu na sisi iko wapi katika koti zetu na zenu?
Okay, thank you. Maybe let me say something. Recently, our court has made a decision that the issue, of course, was whether when one petitions for divorce and the other part does not have any issue, maybe he or she is not objecting to the petition for divorce, can the court enter a consent judgment? Jaji mko mbele ya mahakama, mmoja amewasilisha maombi ya kuvunja ndoa mahakamani, lakini upande mwingine hauna any objection. Swali ni kwamba mahakama inaweza ika a consent judgment. Actually, a consent judgment is now it's analogous to marriage by mutual consent that is being proposed under the law of Kenya as we are speaking now. And unfortunately, our court has not been ready to let couples regard marriage as a mere contract between the parties, that you can wake up in the morning, and if you are not interested to be together, then you want to be freed yourself from these institutions, then off you can go. The court has not been ready to entertain that decision by the parties. And actually, I would like also to say something on grounds for divorce in Tanzania. There is a difference between Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania when it comes to grounds for divorce. Uganda and Kenya have a fault ground regime that if you find a spouse, if a spouse has committed maybe an adultery or desertion or any kind of abuse to the other spouse, then if you prove that before the court, then the court can grant a decree of divorce. This is different in our case in Tanzania, where divorce can be granted based on only one ground, that marriage has been broken beyond repair. Marriage has broken down irreparably. Yes, that could be adultery, that could be desertion, but if these parties continue to live as a husband and wife, will there be love? That's what the court is trying to see. Not that only on the ground that adultery has been committed, or the other spouse has deserted the other one, or there is abuse. So adultery, abuse, desertion, these are just evidence, pieces of evidence, which may prove that there is no longer marriage between these couples. But these are not grounds compared to Kenya and Uganda, where if you prove adultery and desertion, then the court can grant a decree of divorce. This is different from our jurisdiction, where marriage can only be dissolved based on one ground, that the parties should prove that marriage has broken down beyond repair. Only a single ground. So this is different. Now, if that is the case, then don't expect our courts to bless such kind of reform. And I don't think the parliament will come up with that reform if the courts of law are jealous of protecting this institution at all costs. So we are going to see how far this reform is going to be implemented in Kenya. But in Tanzania, maybe it will take a bit of a time to think about introducing such kind of amendment. Because the current generation, as Madam spoken, we don't have commitment in marriage. Youngsters nowadays regard marriage as something like hell and full of difficulties and complexities. So it could be easy for them to to receive or to conceive such kind of reform positively, with positivity. But in our country, probably it will take a very long time before we accept such kind of reform. Because our laws that we are speaking now are protecting marriage and constitution. The courts do not grant divorce on the flimsy ground. Then you could prove adultery, but yet the court refuses. As long as couples may still continue to be husband and wife. But if the court is satisfied that these couples can no longer be a wife and a husband because their relationship is broken down beyond repair, then it can grant divorce. Otherwise, our courts are not ready to follow that approach.
Okay. This is quite interesting. Tanzania is not entirely different from us, but I think it is to some extent different from us. I think over the few years, and Rosa perhaps can agree or confirm or negate what I'm saying. I think the rise in divorce cases in Kenya have gone high, if I'm not wrong, over the few years. I don't know about Tanzania, but in Kenya they have gone so high, and I think that is why we're trying to put an additional clause in this, because so many people want to get out of these marriages and they can't. They're tied down, they have kids with this person, but then they want to move on with their lives. And I'm not agreeing that divorce is the best way out, but then sometimes for the broader perspective or the broader picture, and leaving alone, the African tradition. As Africans, we have, although we're trying to be westernized, we're trying to, we're trying to be learned, we still have those African attributes to us. And I don't think we should necessarily leave them behind, because Waswahili wanasema, and Hassan can confirm this, mwacha mila ni mtumwa. So we're trying to also follow our routines and our cultures, but at the same time, it's also, the world is also changing, so things can't be the same. So I just want to, we've almost come to the end of our discussion, our forum. You guys gave me very amazing insights, and I know that people who are locked in and who are listening to you guys and your perspectives from a legal point of view, from the other point of view where we're dealing with our neighbors, like Hassan giving us an idea of how they deal with issues. So I would just want to give you an opportunity to give us your parting shot. Tell us where you stand with this marriage bill, what your thoughts are, and what your key takeaways are. So I would want to start with Marvin, and then we can proceed to Kimela, and then we will save the best for last, Rosa.
I think that divorce by mutual separation is the way forward, because the advantages outweigh the disadvantages. There's less moral judgment. You cannot blame a particular person saying that maybe committed adultery, this person cheated on you. Then there's this issue of equality, the emphasis of equality. See, when we come and we agree to divorce, we are treated by the court equally. So it shows that both genders, like even women, they are considered as equal to men. Then there's less adversarial approach. Fault-based divorce often involves continuous legal battle, pitting one spouse against the other. Mutual consent divorce promotes a less adversarial approach, encouraging cooperation and negotiation. There is reduced privatization. There is greater emphasis in conflict and resolution mechanism, and the future the future is bright with this new bill. And I think that most countries, there are countries that already they have this in their laws, India, UK. So I think this is the best way forward, because it will leave people, they'll be less bitter after separation, and the advantages are quite, they're quite good. They outweigh the disadvantages. I think that it is the way forward, and probably Uganda and Tanzania should try and adapt that to their law. Yeah, that's a parting shot. That's what I can say.
Thank you, Marvin. I think
I think that when people, it is better not to divorce. But if you think that your mental health will be, you're better off alone. If divorce is the last result, that is the best. That is the best thing for your spouse and your kids. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much, Marvin, for gracing us with your presence. Thank you for your insights. I believe also from a legal standpoint, perhaps you would pick something that works easier for most parties. So thank you for being here, and thank you for giving us your insights. They were quite helpful. Hassan, please proceed. Give us your insights. Give us your take. Give us your comparative study when it comes to your country and ours, and basically your parting shot.
Okay, is just say that Tanzania is still embracing uh, the regime whereby only the court can grant divorce on very strict grounds that the marriage is broken beyond repair, uh, comparing to our neighboring countries such as Kenya, in which marriage can be broken down, can be resolved if one of the spouses prove before the court that maybe adultery detention has been committed by the other. So coming to this amendment bill, it's what I can say is it's just a groundbreaking achievement in Kenya when it comes to uh, divorce proceedings, because it is going to save time of the court, resources of the courts as well as of the parties, and you see, handling disputes amicably through mutual consent between the parties is more appropriate than depending on the court's litigation, which, as we know, is costly, time consuming, full of procedural technicalities. As you can see, one proceeding can take even 4 years before decree of divorce is granted. These challenges are going to be solved. But on the other hand, I'm thinking of the implication of this new bill on the marriage as a social institution, as an institution which represents cultural values of African people. Uh, as marriage therapist here hinted, what are we passing on to the coming or future generation? Does it mean that marriage has lost its social value? Is it dispensable? That one can wake up in the morning and decide to terminate the relationship if they are not interested? What about the interest of the children? What about the future of a social institution? So I think, on the other hand, this bill is going to drain the significance of marriage as an institution which stands for cultural values of African people. But I think the bill that has come at the right time where there are a lot of external forces. Globalization and interaction and changes of culture. We see the word of cultural diversity. You cannot avoid such kind of reform. And you can see also marriage is full of challenges, including um violence, domestic violence. So you can find that one of the victims actually is women are most victims of this institution. Now maybe it is going to solve a lot of challenges that are facing marriage couples in their marriage relationship.
Thank you so much, Hassan, for gracing us with your presence, for even giving us ideas and insights from your laws and that separates us from our laws. and I think it was quite educational, and I'm so sure Marvin and Ross also have learned a few things apart from myself. And I would love to, as I've said, best I've said the best for last. Rosa, please give us your insights. I know we've gotten the male perspective, but now we want a female perspective on this whole idea. And what would you want for us to take away from this entire discussion?
Mm. Thank you, Diana. Thank you, Marvin. Thank you, Hassan. It was an amazing opportunity. Um, as I'm thinking about the parting shot, I wanna, I, I, I don't know whether I am for or against. I won't maybe be quick to say what I am for or against, but just to think on these statements. Number one, what we find optional, the next generation will find unnecessary. So whether it's marriage or whatever it is, if things start becoming optional for us, for the next generation, it's going to be completely unnecessary. Again, I'm looking at the aspect of this proposed amendment is to make the process easier. And my question is, while it's making it easier, what is it passing down? So would we then consider streamlining the process? If the issue is on more procedural and procedural technicalities, would can we then find ways to deal with the administrative aspect of the legal procedure that makes the process longer? The other bit to consider is, while we are saying this is by mutual consent, remember we say that our behavior is influenced by our emotion and our thought process. Is this consent influenced by pain? Because if the process has become quicker, then would that mean that even before I have thought this through, I'm making an emotional decision, I caught them cheating, this is adultery, I cannot do this, and because it's consent, you've got to agree that I am leaving you, let's just go. Is it because of the quicker way out? Can we consider that probably the longer route that had been put in law was to serve as a deterrent? Remember, law serves, certain measures do serve as a deterrent to behavior. So was this process serving a deterrence effect, where because of the long process, people take more time and like, okay, can we go for counseling maybe because it's even cheaper, or it may be easier? So is it then making people jump the hurdles? Because now, if there were solutions like, let's talk about it, let's go to parents, let's seek counseling because these are cheaper routes, and then divorce. So we've moved the divorce hurdle backwards, and it's like, this is even cheaper than going for counseling. Hey, let's agree and go. So if this consent is then influenced by pain, and we are making that window period between pain and active thinking smaller, then will we see more people regret their decisions after, when the emotions have cooled down? Again, is it possible that even when this is a good thing and we are saying that it's going to make it easier and have less emotional stress, which I perfectly agree with, then can we introduce a particular aspect where courts will have to be convinced by the parties that are coming with mutual consent that they've tried other means? That is there a way to ascertain? If I was a judge, I would want to ask these people who are coming by mutual consent, have you guys sought other mechanisms? I would want you guys to go to a mediator, to go to a counselor, and let them ascertain to me that this thing has it cannot be retrieved, it's been broken beyond repair. Can we go the extra mile to say, though we are giving you then this ease of dissolving the marriage, but we also want to be certain that you guys are making this decision in your most emotional, you're capable emotionally, you're not being influenced by pain, you're not being coerced, money has not been poured somewhere, you're of sound mind in this moment. So, are we able to probably go the extra mile? And even these grounds for consent, can we probably introduce, what are these grounds for consent? Are there particular incentives that are making people consent, whether pain or pleasure? Because those are also motivators of behavior. In therapy, we look at what is motivating this behavior. Yes, there is consent, but what is motivating this consent? So I'm just curious to see where this will go, but I'm also more concerned about the message it is sending, whether it's for or against, but the message it is sending towards the idea of marriage. So those will be my parting shot. But again, I would want to probably leave by saying that anything works if you put in the work. Divorce will work if you put in the work. Marriage will work if people put in the work. And the work is not one side, it is by both parties coming in to say, what are our blind spots? What are our attachment styles? How do we communicate? How am I healthy as a person? By the time you're coming to marriage, you attract people at your level of wellness. So even by the time we are saying let's divorce, it means that both parties, what wellness level were they at? So when we begin to encourage individuals to work on their wellness meter, that as you are working on your wellness, you are attracting people at your level of wellness. And so people then begin to understand that they need to be well even before they consider getting into marriage. And if we can even start training our young people right from grade school, and just teaching them how to be mentally healthy, how to make proper decisions, how to communicate, how to have healthy boundaries, how to love themselves, then they're able to attract people who are on that level. Probably will see the divorce rates coming down, and we'll also see more healthier marriages, meaning the next generation will live in a place of health, and then they will begin to believe more in the institution of marriage and family, if I may put it that way. Thank you, Diana. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Rosa. Your insights, honestly, they were very out of the box because we were having the legal perspective, but then from the person who has entirely maybe seen these marriages breaking down. Now we also put to get the idea of how we get here, and I want to thank you guys from a sincerest point. So thank you so much for participating in this forum. It was very informative. It was very educational, and I just want to wish you guys a lovely day as you proceed. And thank you for joining us. Have a lovely day, guys. I'll end the live stream now. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.